Hello and welcome to Marks & Clark's Blurred Lines podcast series. I'm Robecca Davey, Chartered Trademark Attorney and Senior Associate at Marks & Clark, and throughout this series we'll delve into intriguing and evolving subjects in the intersection of fashion and intellectual property for 2024. Our discussions will span diverse topics such as the rise of NFTs, the expansive world of the metaverse, and the pivotal role of AI in shaping the industry. Each episode will feature insights from a spectrum of experts in the fashion realm, along with special guests from within Marks & Clark, providing unique perspectives on these compelling themes. So without further delay, let's embark on this week's episode. Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing all things NFT. We're going to go right back to the basics, and then we'll probably take a deeper dive into the subjects. We are going to address challenges and considerations that brand owners may need to take into account, and some of the common themes that we're seeing in this field. I am Becca Davey. I am a Senior Associate and Trademark Attorney at Marks & Clark. Marks & Clark are a global intellectual property firm. To give you a bit of background on me, I have worked in the industry for about 16 years now. I have a broad practice and range of clients with a lean towards those in the fashion sector. I am going to co-host today with Teemu of Spatial 8. Teemu, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, hello, my name is Teemu Ollilainen from Spatial 8, and Spatial 8 is the concierge service for Metaverse in many perspectives. And my own history is short and sweet, is that I've been working in the ICT sector for over 25 years, and the past, I guess, 10 years or so in the, let's say, metaverse context from the early days, or whatever that might be. But let's maybe dive deeper onto those later on. But some experience in that, and especially with the B2B, business to business, is my kind of expertise. But today we are talking about interesting stuff, and I'll leave to Kelly then to introduce herself. I think this is the most important introduction today.
Absolutely. Kelly, we are so honoured to have you here with us today. I'm not sure that there's anyone else better placed to discuss this topic with us. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm Kelly Vero, the most annoying NFT person on the planet. That's what you need to know. Seriously, I've worked in game development for the last 30 years, and I kind of got really excited about the prospect of NFT, gosh, maybe about 10 years ago, with the advent of Bitcoin, etc. We started to look at the possibilities of what we'll talk about it, of what we can do in this space. And I went away and worked on some really nice projects when I moved over here to Switzerland, where I'm speaking to you from today in Zurich. And yeah, I guess the key thing that I've done in the NFT space is create the trading standard for NFTs for art and luxury, which we'll talk about how I did that and why it's important today. But also, I'm really, really passionate about NFTs, so much so that I've got a book that's out at the moment that you can only pre-order if you buy an NFT. So I'm also disrupting the publishing world as well by creating NFTs for everything.
I love this so much. So Kelly, how about we kick off this conversation with the basics? What are NFTs? Where do they come from? Why are they creating a buzz? Tell us. Starts off here, and then we'll progress to the more meaty stuff.
I had a really great conversation yesterday when I was at a conference, and we talked about fast-moving consumer goods, FMCG. So everything from your deodorant to your tea bags. These things are all fungible. There's loads of them. They're everywhere. You can use them at any time, just buy them from your supermarket. They're incredibly generic. So what's the opposite of that? A Louis Vuitton handbag, a Prada pair of shoes. These things are non-fungible. They're pretty exclusive. You don't see them every day on a supermarket shelf. So they're the opposite of the fast-moving consumer goods in this analogy. And I think that explains what the difference between fungible and non-fungible actually is. Fungible is something that is like totally available. Non-fungible is or should be something that's pretty exclusive or limited. So when we talk about non-fungible tokens, we're talking about things that have a limited exclusivity, but also because of that, they have a lot of value. And I guess we'll talk about those examples a little bit more as we talk. But when you think about NFTs, you think about Bored Apes, CryptoPunks. But if we go back in time 5, 6, 7 years ago, we're talking about CryptoKitties. And CryptoKitties really were the first time that we discovered what an NFT is and what it could do for us. Today we have bigger requirements and needs, but really the CryptoKitty, that's a little bit like what's on Dimmer's head there, sort of explains, I suppose, exactly what the NFT does to the consumer. It makes us want something, and because we're a nation of, or a world of hoarders and collectors, we want to create a collection that's very, very unique to us. And that explains the NFT and why it's so powerful today.
That is absolutely fascinating. I love the idea that you're kind of like authenticating what you have and showing that kind of it is what it says it is, I suppose, with an NFT, and using that as that kind of a way. You know, it's a really interesting case, or certainly in terms of trademarks, that we are starting to see coming through, which is interesting. So what about terms like blockchain, smart contracts and things like that? How does that kind of fit into this picture?
Well, our NFTs have always been created because they're not fungible, they're non-fungible, have been created on this open distributed ledger. So if you think about like an accounts book that is infinitesimal and is vast, and it's also varied and layered, that explains our blockchain. What you put in on one side and you take out on the other, it is anonymized, but it's also available. So the crypto part really explains the cryptographics, or the sort of encryption that we use. There's a lot of talk at the moment about sort of end-to-end encryption, right? When we think about things like the online safety bill, etc. Well, encryption really is just codifying or turning a value or something like non-fungible into something that is more safe, readable, shareable, distributable, where it doesn't identify individuals, or it doesn't identify specific values. It is a relationship between those who create the block that goes up onto the blockchain and those that pull it down. So we would pull it down through our wallets, or we might buy through various other transactables. A lot of big companies really use blockchain now, so they're not just working in a system that is focused solely on having your MetaMask wallet, or in my case, the Solo wallet. In effect, what you're using is different protocols and different solutions, different APIs to be able to draw that information down. Additionally, because we're talking about crypto, we also have to talk about cryptocurrencies, of which there were a gajillion after the explosion, when this, you know, mysterious figure Satoshi created this Bitcoin for us in 2007, 2009. And then that's exploded into this really interesting space where we have these two things. We've got cryptocurrencies, we've got fiat currencies. Fiat currencies are the type of currencies like the dollar, the Swiss franc, the British pound, the krona, the euro. They're all things that are pegged to an economy. The great thing about Bitcoin and other currencies, cryptocurrencies especially, is that they really aren't. They are focused entirely upon community, and it's the movement of the community that drives the value of those particular currencies. So when we buy NFTs, one of the key things we have to think about is, how do we put all of these things together? And when we purchase something, we receive and create a smart contract. That smart contract then goes up into blockchain. So that encryption is available in the sort of ether, for want of a better term. And then when we want to either sell that NFT, or we want to pull it down, or transfer it into something else like currency, which you should never do, then what we actually do is we look at the smart contract from a different perspective. So that smart contract is a live document that lives inside the blockchain, and it is constantly being either updated by the people who are pushing it around the sort of atmosphere around us in the distributed ledger, or if we're selling it on and creating secondary marketplaces, for example, in art and digital asset classes, smart contracts are very important.
Yeah, maybe I'll jump into that. It's mostly when we are talking about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies and NFTs, it kind of easily goes, well, we will go as well more deeper maybe into technology, but it's very hard for people who are not kind of familiar with the technology to understand it. So maybe as a final question on the terminology part would be maybe that how would you summarize for a person who is not that technology oriented, that what they would need to know from the technology perspective in order to get into, for example, NFTs, that if they are interested in digital NFTs rather than doing like physical art pieces, they would like to have digital art pieces, what they need to know in order to get into that?
I think it's really the analogy that I talked about before, you know, with the luxury and the fast moving consumer goods. We use such traditional ways of purchasing deodorants and baked beans, but when we focus on like new technologies, you know, crypto, NFT, digital art classes, we're actually using the tools that live inside that space. So I would describe it entirely, Demo, as being a totally different or new way of transacting. A non-traditional transaction space is how I would describe it. And we use everything, don't we, from wallets to blockchain to smart contracts, etc. How would you describe it?
Well, that's a very good question. I think it's hence it's a totally new way of thinking about transactions, because if the evolution of exchanging currencies comes from exchanging squirrel skins because they were rare to hunt in the early days, then we moved into the normal money, which is first based on how much gold each country had in their bank vaults, and that was the basis of the currency. But now it's more difficult, like the blockchain technology, like we are talking about, like Bitcoin, that is based on how difficult it is to mine. So there's a kind of, it's quite arbitrary, like it's very hard to understand the concept that where the value comes in. So in that perspective, I would say that getting into the market, if you are new to it, it would be like maybe trying to first understand how the market works with the currencies, then try to understand what is NFT value based on, because they are like sold with the cryptocurrency value, then understand how the NFTs are valued, why they are valued so high. Like you said, that like the crypto kittens and all that, it's hard to understand why it's so special, and then maybe to dive into that. And like I have also an NFT behind me in that perspective. So it's a difficult concept to understand, that it requires a bit of digging into the technology. So it needs learning curve to understand.
Yeah, I think you're right, because there are quite a lot of things on the market that create, a steep learning curve is good, right? Because it allows you to do autonomy, mastery, and purpose. But I think there are a lot of products that are on the market that make it even harder. And so I really love tools and technologies that use things like the mom test. When I created my wallet, that's one of the things that I wanted to do, to be able to test this process. I wanted to make sure that my mum could create an NFT, and sure enough, it was really easy to do. So if you can take a pic of your favorite cat that's on your head right now and turn that into an NFT, then you have just passed your master's degree from the NFT University, of which you will be receiving a smart contract to validate your credentials.
So Kelly, I'm really interested to see, obviously I'm a trademark attorney. What are, from your perspective, what are you seeing the people you work with and people in the industry coming up against in terms of legal challenges? I mean, from my perspective, I'm certainly advising my clients on how to protect their rights and to get protection for their brands and NFTs in that respect. We've had a few cases come through. I don't know if you've heard about the Metabirkin case with Hermes, and there was also a big Nike case. We have very limited case law relating to the UK and EU at the moment. So it's a super exciting time from my perspective, because we're actually seeing this evolving. Finding particularly fashion clients really wanting to get on board with this and jump into this. But it'd be really interesting, you know, from your perspective, you're on the ground, like, what are you seeing? What are you coming up against?
So much. You're right. You know, I think the Metabirkin versus Hermes case is one of the most interesting use cases of IP infringement I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
Because it really does set a precedent for what we will do in the future. So to give everybody who's listening a background, there was or there is a kind of figure called an atelier or designer called Maison Rothschild. And Maison Rothschild created this famous NFT from an already existing famous handbag called the Hermes Birkin. Now, these handbags go for about 10,000 plus from brand new, and their value only increases year on year as a physical object. So seeing this as an NFT was a direct infringement on what Hermes had always banked their entire business model upon as a luxury retailer. And this was a huge problem. So many court cases happened, lots of cases and arguments went back and forth. There was no precedent that was set in how this existed beforehand. This is the first time we've ever seen it. The solution to this issue, or the resolution, should I say, was that Metabirkin was in direct infringement of the Hermes trademark, mostly by calling it the Metabirkin. It seems that the name Birkin carries so much weight, and I've worked with quite a lot of luxury companies, and they're really jealous of their competition because they have a small margin of a marketplace with which they need to service and they need to connect with or gain. So market gains in that space are very, very tight margins. Yeah, we always think that luxury is such a massive area. It isn't actually. You will find, I talked about earlier, the fast moving consumer goods market is the bigger. So if you're thinking about high street brands, there's going to be much more of those. And there are so little in the luxury marketplace. When we work, and I'm the CEO of a company called Naked, which is a digital fashion company. When we work with brands, we have to take this into consideration immediately. What are the 2 key challenges, or 5 key challenges, or even 100 that the organization, the fashion house, is looking to be able to either kind of develop or protect as part of what it is that they want to create in an NFT? And you'd be really surprised to learn that the name is one of the biggest parts of this conversation, because when atelier or fashion houses and maison create something, they trademark the name and they trademark the design. So the second part of the Metabirkin trial is actually about the design. This handbag looked exactly like a Birkin, but it was in lots of different colors. Now, what would have happened at Hermes is that they will have trademarked everything from color to shape to the handles on the bag to the, you know, aglets, the zips. All of this stuff is all trademarked, and it's all broken down in, you know, as Rebecca knows, into various layers and segments. So this bag effectively is not just one handbag, it's made up of a million different parts, and those parts all have to be protected. So design patents and trademarking really does come into play here as well. So these were the 2 areas. When I work with my clients in luxury, one of the things that they're looking to achieve is can you make this NFT look exactly the same in digital as it does in real life? Because if it doesn't look the same, then that's an infringement of itself. My advice to people who are creating in this space is a pretty insightful, I would suppose, and quite controversial. And that's that the creator of whatever it is that's being created as an NFT is the owner. Uber alles, above all. There is nobody bigger than Hermes in creating a Birkin bag. No one else created that Birkin bag but Hermes. If you are developing NFTs, that does not make you the creator. And that's a really important part of this. I can take a picture of a Louis Vuitton handbag today, but I can't really turn it into an NFT that I can claim is my NFT. It isn't. It doesn't belong to Kelly Vero. The original developer of that handbag and design is Louis Vuitton. So I would say, in short, that it's important to make sure that if you're creating NFTs from the outset, that the use case is very, very clear here. And that is, if you're creating things that already exist in the physical entity, unless you have express permission to create NFTs based on the quality requirements of the atelier or fashion house or artist or whatever it is that you're making, even a piece of music now, because we can have NFT music as well and audio, that you should be looking to creating in collaboration with the original copyright owner.
Yeah, and so from my point of view, it's from the flip side, in terms of the brand owner, making sure that you have trademark protection that adequately covers goods authenticated by NFTs, but also virtual goods, because it's slightly nuanced where, yeah, you make leather bags, but you don't necessarily have protection for virtual bags or virtual shoes or virtual clothes. If you are Hermes and you have such a massive reputation whereby people see an NFT of a bag or a virtual Birkin, they might associate it with you, and you might have a claim there that you could potentially run before the court to be watertight. If you know that you're going to go into the metaverse and have a lot of NFTs, virtual goods and things like that, we kind of would recommend that you make sure your trademark protection is watertight, solid, so that you're in the best position that you can to bring an action. Again, it's new, so we don't know how courts interpret a lot of this, but I think the best warning that we can give our clients is just to make sure, if this is going to be big for you, and for a lot of our flat fashion clients it is, that you are getting protection for your virtual goods, for real goods authenticated by NFTs, to make sure that you're best placed to take action should you ever need to, because we're not all Hermes. We don't all have that
so
reputation.
True. Yeah, but I would say that there's a different case here that's interesting from a legal perspective, and that's art. Because, you know, I did an NFT collection a year or so ago with, you know, Picasso, and the Picasso NFT was a Picasso art piece that was bought by an organization in co-ownership with a view to selling this physical art piece. The NFT provided a kind of fragmented ownership. So it was part ownership. It's like taking a piece of paper and ripping it up into 100 pieces and saying, you know, Demo, you can have a piece, Rebecca, you can have a piece, but each one of these pieces is going to cost you X. And then in a couple of years' time, we're going to put this to auction, and we envisage that the return on that investment is going to be anything between 0%, because we know what the marketplace is like, to kind of, I don't know, average amounts of sort of 8 to 15%. And art's interesting because Pablo Picasso is dead. He's been dead for a really long time. How do we protect the heritage of artists, and can we use NFTs to do that? I think that's another interesting use case, because what that kind of brings up is a different type of copyright protection to the physical objects that you can buy on your sort of high street or in an exclusive or luxury setting, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it is so interesting. I love that so much. And, you know, every time I think of this, I think of like a slightly different scenario. And, you know, another thing, where do you bring your action? What court do you bring it in front of? There are no borders. There are no, you know, where do you, it's just absolutely a fascinating field. You know, I absolutely love it. I can't wait to see how this emerges. But yeah.
I think this is why we created DAOs though, right? So we've got
Yeah.
something called a decentralized autonomous organization. And the DAO is the kind of voting body. It's the sort of nation that is borderless. So it's kind of like a government structure. I think the DAO is really interesting because in a world where there are no borders in the future, in the metaverse, definitely not, who governs? And I think one of the sort of, and Teemu, you can come in on this and sort of say this is a massive headache, but the DAO is actually pretty good because it polices itself as well as policing, you know, either buying artworks or buying specific NFTs or creating metaverse platforms. It's a self-governing body, which in itself, you know, really does carry its own problems and its own issues. But so far what we've seen with DAOs is they have been incredibly fruitful in terms of the data that they've produced in self-governance and policy, which you wouldn't think there would be in a decentralized world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's I would say an topic for another podcast. The DAO itself, it's like it's such a huge thing, and try to get your head around it, how that it works. So it's a big thing. But I would like to pitch into the legal stuff just with the one question is that I have an example. I have this alter ego called Kalle that has been in the spatial show and whatever. He's weird person, but he's also creating digital art and metaverse haikus and the picture behind me which is created with an AI. So how does that bring into the discussion that if the NFT is created using an AI, who owns it? Can I do properly like sell it as an NFT? Do I have the permission to do that? What happens? What are the legal? Do I have the kind of property rights for it? How does that work?
Just get the hell out of here and don't ask difficult questions, okay?
Yeah, I figured as well.
Thank you, Charmy. That's all for you, right?
I think that the AI question as well, and you know, Robecca will probably attest to this, but again, there is no precedence for it. And actually, because there's no precedence for it, it goes hand in hand with current AI policies and precedents that are being set at governmental levels internationally. And because of that, we will probably have to lean harder on AI law than we will have to lean onto NFT or object creation, copyright, trademarks, etc. law. Because I think that AI is not technically person-centric design. It's selected automatically. Where there are individuals and human beings and meat sacks, it's much easier to police, set precedents, create trademarks, create laws, regulation and procedure. But I think when it comes to something that's being created automatically, it's quite difficult. Unless we're maybe looking at the artist as the art, it's going to be quite hard for us to really define what the terms and constraints are. Naturally, if AI is infringing anything that already exists in the stratosphere and in the internet from day one, then yeah, we've got problems in terms of natural infringement problems, trademark issues. But if it's something that's being created ideologically out of an actual machine and it doesn't look like something that we can instantly identify with, then yeah, we've got to really think, are we leaning on AI policies or are we leaning back on NFT policies?
Yeah, I think I kind of echo that. I think from my point of view, with my trademark hassle, if something's been automatically generated and it is a random selection of things, a picture that isn't a copy of something that's doesn't already exist, who would be challenging that? because who would it would really depend. But I think, yeah, I totally agree with Kelly. We don't know really how this would work, but I think it would probably go down the route that Kelly suggests. Super fascinating. I'm watching.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for this.
Yeah,
That's quite a can of worms that we've opened there.
We've opened a big can of
two
worms.
massive cans of worms in the
Yeah.
space of a conversation. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and to make it easier, I have generated the haikus using ChatGPT and using the haiku to generate this with another platform. So it's one way I said to ChatGPT, create a haiku, and here are the kind of what it should do, and then using that haiku, I used another AI to create the picture using that haiku. So is it like where there's a lot of kind of different questions that who owns and what and how does it work, but
my mind is actually blown.
Yeah, let's not get deeper into that. So maybe we'll move on from the concerns and go on to the opportunities rather here. So because there's like one question would be that there's so many applications for the NFTs itself. So now going back to those that of course the digital art, like we discussed, is like the first breakout wave of the NFTs, but in what other domains are you seeing like the most promising growth?
It's incredible because there are so many. NFTs are so developed now. If we look at what CryptoKitties did originally, it was really just to expose that this existed. The kind of goal of what it was that they were doing back then was really just about creating collectibles. I always describe like NFTs as being more like baseball cards, or old-fashioned Pokemon trading cards, top trumps that we had in the UK when we were sort of growing up. And I think today these are not empty things anymore. These things have utility, and the more utility that NFTs have, the stronger their value is in terms of use case and in terms of creating marketplaces and market potentials. So to give an example, I've worked with a brilliant wine grower this year called Masacan, and they're based in Napa Valley in California. And one of the things that they wanted to do was they want to do a collaboration with a famous artist called Amber Vittoria, and she's a digital artist. And they didn't want to just settle for putting her art on a wine label. They decided that what they wanted to do was give their users and purchasers and consumers a free airdrop, we call it. So it's something that's placed directly into your wallet of Amber's work. And what this allowed the user, the consumer, to do was to cover their shipping costs for an entire year. So what that creates is a really healthy, interesting conversation of brand. It first of all cements the brand, and it says, okay, by having this, you are connecting and becoming loyal to a brand. And from that brand loyalty, you are rewarded, and that reward is free shipping for a year. And then what happens is you create a series of talking points and a very exclusive community where only maybe the entire Masacan community of consumers can participate in this experience. So we created a framework for that. And then we also created a platform with which we could do the airdrops. And again, the CEO of Masacan didn't really have a great deal of exposure to creating NFTs. So we needed to make this as simple as possible. It had to be something that he could do in his PC or something that he could do through his wallet. So that's exactly what we did. Wow. What it created was a massive amount of loyalty. So not only did the consumer get the free NFT, they waited for the next round of airdrops because suddenly they became collectors. So I think that's a really, really good use case outside of the norm of, sneakers, fashion, art, which we've already talked about. Wine. Who even thunk that would be a thing?
I think that's a very good collaboration. I will have to take up on that myself. It's a very interesting one. Definitely, I will see about that as well. but that would have been one of the questions. That is it like is the future of NFTs going towards connecting them into the real world applications like physical objects or physical stuff? Kind of what are the applications? Are there more than the wine example? I don't know. Does anything come up from your experience? That are there any proper ones that have been done?
Yeah, I mean, there are some good sort of utility-based NFT use cases that we've seen. You know, the usual stuff like the Artifact Nike collaboration. Artifact was bought by Nike, having traded for less than a year. So they've been in the fashion space, well, the sneaker space, for less than a year, and they were acquired by Nike. So from an acquisition perspective, if you've got a great business model within your NFT, you can be acquired for over $1 billion. I think that's a very exciting prospect. For the smaller developer or the smaller creator, so Masakan is a good example of not being like a huge wine brand, but being more focused on a specific corner of the marketplace, and that really worked for them. Something that I'm doing at the moment is I'm publishing my book as an NFT. So rather than handing all of my hard-earned cash to these big tech billionaires that have online book distributors, I decided instead that it would be a really good idea to work with a company called Bytebound Books, and we've created an NFT which gives individuals who purchase access to not only the physical book itself, because that's what everybody wants, they want something in their hand, but also the collectibles, which are all of the NFTs, and then all of the digital updates. So each time something happens in the book where we have to change to a first, to a second, to a third edition, then the end user who's already purchased the NFT gets those updates at source. There's no messing around anymore. OpenSea and other organizations like Rarible allow us now to be able to embed NFTs with solid utility. And that's something that wasn't evident even 2 years ago. So we've come a long way in 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds very interesting. You mentioned a few of the platforms there. What would be the ones that, on your perspective, is like for the artists and creators, kind of the main ones where to go, where to sell, what's the place to be in a sense?
The big folks that are doing the digital art stuff that's huge, you know, the Maria Abramovich and the Pablo Picasso, etc., will probably err on the side of Rarible. But there are opportunities, obviously, for Artifact definitely used OpenSea when they kind of first started with the sneaker. Puma also, you know, use OpenSea. Pretty much everybody uses OpenSea. OpenSea's business model is much like Facebook's, okay? They are a distribution platform. So Facebook is a distribution platform for information. And in the same notion, OpenSea is a distribution platform for NFT. And so because of that, their business models are very similar in terms of data collection, data protection, you know, financial business models. So there will be a small amount that you will have to pay as a gas fee, but you can do something really nice on OpenSea that you can't do on a lot of distribution platforms. And that is something called a lazy mint. So it means that if you create an NFT and you don't want to pay gas fees, you can just leave it. You don't have to pay it. Until you're ready to actually list something or transfer something to somebody, you don't actually have to pay any gas fees. So I guess we'll have a conversation in a little bit about the whole gas thing, but certainly that's a great opportunity for people who are starting out in the NFT world and thinking to themselves, I don't want to pay a lot of money to just do a test case or do a little use case to see how stuff works. And you can use different networks as well to do that, the most popular being the Ethereum network, which is what our NFTs are based on, because they have specific regulations or standards with which these NFTs are created. But now there's a whole world of different networks, Polygon, Solana, Cardano. There's lots of different networks with which you can build your NFTs upon. So that's quite exciting too, because what that does is that creates more technology and tools provision inside the space.
Yeah, definitely. I think my last question for you would be regarding virtual real estate and the metaverse. There has been a lot of buzz in the past years. For me, well, I have my own opinion, but I would like to have yours. What's the kind of a role with the kind of virtual real estate and NFTs in the upcoming metaverse worlds?
Well, you know, we're all friends now. And so I can be really honest with you both. So I think that virtual real estate's a bunch of crap.
I agree.
Heard it here first, guys. Exclusive from Kelly Vero.
Listen, the reason why I think it has problems. It's an incredibly problematic experience because the metaverse itself is not even habitable right now.
Yeah.
So it doesn't in itself have any utility. There are some very key examples, but these things are not Web3 examples. These are Web2 businesses that are behaving like metaverses. So companies such as Lockwood that make Avakin Life, you know, that's Web2. The sandbox is Web3 for sure, Decentraland Web3. There are other choices of metaverses, but what's the point in buying a piece of virtual real estate in something that's unproven, that we don't know if in 10 years it's going to have any value at all? Look at what happened with Bored Apes. Its value was completely wiped as an NFT. So that proves to some extent that we're out of the honeymoon phase, that we're not in Kansas anymore. And so because we're not in Kansas anymore, we can't actually put our fingers on virtual real estate being a solid use case for us to be able to have investments. And also when we talk about virtual real estate as an investment, we're not adhering to investment codes. So that presents another bunch of legal issues for us going forward. We haven't seen a metaverse collapse in on itself yet. So we haven't seen any lawsuits that are involved in people saying, well, I own 50,000 packets of land in this metaverse, so where's my return on my investment? The point of investment is that investments go up as well as down. But because we're creating this brave new world, the way that we're selling virtual real estate is also problematic. It is, you know, the world of the metaverse is paved with good intentions, but the reality is very, very different, and it's completely unproven, uncharted, and we don't know whether we can hang our hat on virtual real estate. We certainly can hang our hats on NFT because they actually are tangible, even though they're non-fungible. But virtual real estate requires us to have a one-size-fits-all metaverse, and we simply don't have that right now. As a philosophy, it's something we dream of. The reality is very different.
So, Kelly, what do you, and to like kind of bring this to a conclusion, what do you see happening next? Like, and what do you like? What are your kind of closing thoughts? What do you think might happen, you know, in the near future? Real estate, maybe not yet. I'm not going to start buying up loads of metaverse, but what do you think we can expect to see, like in the near future?
Well, I think I can probably say this now, but I'm certainly working with the World Economic Forum to create a platform which is connective, inclusive, and accessible for everybody to be able to find whatever it is that they're looking for, from education and information to understanding more about the future of NFTs and how they can power everything from brands to tools to, yeah, even maybe real estate in the future. One thing that is very clear is that we're not going to be reliant solely on the physical realm to give us what it is that we need. Virtual reality and extended reality as a whole, like what the guys at Spatial 8 do, is very, very important to us being able to harness what happens in the next pandemics, what happens in the next natural disasters, because the physical space that we're in at the moment is problematic in and of itself. And we need to have some good guardrails and frameworks inside the virtual space to be able to provide us with much more of a workable future. I think we're getting there. I definitely see exciting things happening in NFT utility, for example. The things that we can do now are things that we couldn't do 6 years ago. You know, Siemens is a huge technology organization and has really started to put all of its chips into the metaverse as being a place that they can do everything from run safety protocols to engaging and onboarding end users and consumers at B2C level. So I'm pretty excited about the future, and I hope that NFTs plays a huge part in that.
Kelly, thank you so much for chatting to us today. You have been a joy, an absolute joy to chat to.
I definitely talk a lot.
I love it.
That helps.
You're fascinating. I love it. Thank you so much, Kelly.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening. For more information on all of these topics and to listen to all the episodes so far in the series, make sure to visit our Fashion Hub on the Marks & Clark website. You can find the link in the bio of this episode. See you again next time on the Blurred Lines podcast.